The Privileges Committee has now published the written evidence submitted by Boris Johnson ahead of Wednesday's hearing. The former Prime Minister admits misleading Parliament, but says he did not do it intentionally or recklessly. Johnson also says this: "In informing my honest and reasonable belief, I also relied on what I had not been told. I never received any warning before any event that anyone had concerns that an event might break the rules or guidance. No one advised me after any of these events that they were against the rules or guidance, or more importantly, that they had been allowed to go on in such a way as to breach the rules or guidance." Well, let's take a look at that in the context of the now infamous Bring Your Own Booze party, which took place in Downing Street during lockdown on 20th of May 2020. On that day, then Culture Secretary Oliver Dowden reinforced the government's messaging on exactly what was permitted under the lockdown rules.
You can meet one person outside your household in an outdoor public place, provided that you stay 2 metres apart.
You don't have to be a rocket scientist to understand what that meant. Even Larry the Cat will have got it. And to add more context to that day, there were almost 10,000 people in hospital with coronavirus. There had already been over 36,000 COVID deaths. Dowden was not the only one highlighting the rules that day. The Metropolitan Police told people in a tweet that afternoon, "You can relax, have a picnic, exercise or play sport as long as you are on your own, with people you live with, just you and one other person." So far so clear, but not it seems to the then Prime Minister, who helped to write the rules and impose them on the rest of us. It was the hottest day of the year. The temperature was in the mid-20s, and one of Johnson's top officials thought it would be perfect weather for a get-together. In an email sent to more than 100 employees on that day, Martin Reynolds, the Prime Minister's principal private secretary, wrote this:
"Hi all. After what has been an incredibly busy period, we thought it would be nice to make the most of this lovely weather and have some socially distanced drinks in the number 10 garden this evening. Please join us from 6 p.m. and bring your own booze."
Johnson maintains he never saw the email.
It's extremely unlikely he could have invited 100 people to a party in the Downing Street garden without the assent of the Prime Minister.
For added context, here's law professor Adam Wagner.
At that time, it was illegal for a person to be outside of the place they were living without a reasonable excuse. And that reasonable excuse could include where they needed to work. But as we can see from the email, this doesn't look a lot like work.
Johnson says no one warned him the Bring Your Own Booze party was against the rules.
It's been reported that during lockdown there were tables at this event that people were eating, drinking. There were 30 plus people in attendance. He was there with his then fiancée, we're told. It was reported today that people who didn't even work in number 10 were there.
This is what one number 10 staff had told the BBC's Laura Kunsberg.
His email appeared and it ruffled a lot of feathers. There were lots of instant messages flying about, the main focus of which seemed to be, what on earth is this?
Some staffers thought it was wrong at the time.
As soon as that email went around, I think people knew that it would be trouble if and when it got out.
Johnson's former aide, Dominic Cummings, also claims he raised concerns.
The Prime Minister accused of lying to Parliament by his former chief advisor Dominic Cummings, who says he knew in advance about a Downing Street drinks party during lockdown.
I said to the PM something like, "Martin's invited the building to a drinks party. This is what I'm talking about. You've got to grip this madhouse." The PM waved it aside. Not only me, but other eyewitnesses who discussed this at the time would swear under oath this is what happened. Johnson denies Cummings raised any such concerns with him. This is how the BBC's Laura Kunsberg described the event which took place.
30 people attended, including, according to 2 eyewitnesses, the Prime Minister and his wife, with a long table set out in the garden for drinks and snacks.
We know this gathering broke lockdown rules because the Metropolitan Police issued Downing Street staff with a tranche of fines for attending the event.
But there is still a small minority who refuse to do the right thing. And to them, my message is clear. If you don't follow these rules, then the police will enforce them.
No one would have imagined at the time that the transgressors the police would be handing fixed penalty notices out to more than 2 years later would include the occupants of number 10. Whilst Johnson himself was not one of those fined for attending this particular event, he has admitted he was there. We know the Metropolitan Police issued a staggering 126 fixed penalty notices to nearly 83 individuals in Downing Street and Whitehall for lockdown law breaking. Boris Johnson himself received a fine relating to a gathering for his birthday in Downing Street on 19th of June 2020. Yet Johnson repeatedly told Parliament this.
All guidance was followed completely during number 10. I have been repeatedly assured since these allegations emerged that there was no party and that no COVID rules were broken. I'm sickened myself and furious about that. But I repeat what I have said to him, that I've been repeatedly assured that the rules were not broken. The guidance was followed and the rules were followed at all times.
When details of the gathering in May 2020 emerged, this is what Johnson told Parliament.
Number 10 is a big department with the garden as an extension of the office, which has been in constant use because of the role of fresh air in stopping the virus. And when I went into that garden just after 6 on the 20th of May 2020, to thank groups of staff before going back into my office 25 minutes later to continue working, I believed implicitly that this was a work event.
It was an explanation that attracted howls of derision in the House of Commons given the invitation to bring your own booze. This was the response from the Labour Party leader Keir Starmer.
His defence that he didn't realise he was at a party. It is so ridiculous that it's actually offensive to the British public.
If Johnson had been asked to explain the rules at the daily press conference that day, the rules he helped to draft and impose on the rest of us, would he seriously have stood at the Downing Street podium and said it would be okay for the public to invite 100 people to their gardens for a bring your own booze party? Would he seriously have said it would be okay to go to a bring your own booze party at your place of work in the middle of a lockdown? Well, now he wants us to believe he didn't realise at that time such a gathering broke the rules he helped to draft and impose on the rest of us. It's utterly ridiculous. And even worse, government ministers rushed to defend him.
What I can tell you is that the Prime Minister has been very clear that the rules were followed at all times in Downing Street.
I've checked before coming on and I'm told very clearly that the guidance was followed.
The PM has been crystal clear in relation to any circumstances, events in Downing Street that the rules were complied with.
I've been reassured that all guidance was carefully followed.
The Prime Minister said, to the best of his knowledge, there were no parties.